أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Wait, give it 2 minutes. It's just loading.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Respected scholars, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all so much for joining us for our Ashura Awareness Lecture Series. Tonight is the first night of a 3-night series. Before we begin, I just wanted to share a little about who we are as a club. CMA, or the Thaqalain Muslim Association, is a club which focuses on sharing and spreading the wisdom of our beloved Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Throughout the year, we hold many events such as a lecture series like tonight, mental health events and workshops, career workshops, and you can always join us for the regular Dua Tawassul, Dua Kumal, and Dua Nuzba recitations and or events. Of course, this year the circumstances aren't quite ideal, but inshallah we can all virtually come together and continue to benefit from all we have to learn from our Ahlul Bayt. A special thanks to Sheikh Vinay Ketia and Sayyid Ali Imran, who will both be enlightening us over the course of the next 3 nights. We are honored to have you both, and we pray that your efforts are rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the program, we will hold a very brief Q&A for anyone who has questions strictly pertaining to the speech to clarify any confusion, should there be any. Without further ado, please join me in reciting a loud salawat as we welcome Brother Ghalib, who will begin the program with a recitation from the Holy Quran. Brother Ghalib, whenever you're ready.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام را تلك آيات الكتاب المبين. إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام را تلك آيات الكتاب المبين. إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى. فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. ألم نشرح لك صدرك فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أجمع صلوات.
Thank you, Brother Ghalib, for that beautiful recitation. Without any further delays, I'd like to call upon Sheikh Vinay. Sheikh, whenever you're ready, you may begin. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وهو رحمته للعالمين وهو أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين ولعنة الله دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تنصروا الله ينصركم ويثبت أقدامكم. I want to begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, I know you brothers and sisters over there. We've had, alhamdulillah, several programs together over the years. And I pray for all of your safety, and inshallah, when we get together again in the future, we'll be able to meet on campus, as I always enjoy my time with you all over at UTSC and getting together. And it's one of the things that I really try to make time in the schedule for, as I believe it's something that is important, especially when young people are engaged in religious activities in Deen. This is something that we must and we should support, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you all more tawfiq and His blessings to continue your work in whatever way you can to support the message of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt al-Thaqalayn. Speaking of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, I'm beginning with the verse from Surah Muhammad, the 7th verse from Surah Muhammad, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, "O you who believe, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, if you come to the help of God, if you aid in the cause of God, in tansurullaha yansurkum, He will aid you, and He will plant your feet firmly. وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ." That meaning, when we strive in the way of God, I mean, and I know that we hear this all the time, it's almost like a platitude, but it's not, you know, it's not just a platitude. When we work in the way of God for something that we know is true, that we know is haqq, Allah will plant our feet firmly in the ground, and He will come to our assistance. He will help us. He may not always, you see, our help is not always seen in that being, you know, in winning every single contest. But the assistance of Allah comes also in giving us the strength and the courage and the determination to carry out that cause, to continue down His path, despite the fact that very often there are people who, you know, the naysayers, right? And we have to, you know, face those objections of various naysayers. But for the mu'mineen, la ta'khudhu, you know, for the mu'min, you know, they don't take any, you know, they don't take that into account when they know that they're on the right path, inshallah, the path of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawatullahi alayhim ajma'een. And as a part of this journey, this is exactly what the journey, you know, this is what ties into the journey of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And I'm going to connect this to Sahib al-Zaman and demonstrate a kind of connection between Sahib al-Zaman and Imam al-Hussein very briefly here. But there is one common thing between the followers of Sahib al-Zaman and the followers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And I'll tell you what it is. It's both of these groups of people put their faith and certainty in the Imam. They were devoted to him to such an extent that they were ready to abandon their own desires for life, in exchange for being with their Imam. Because they believe very truly that if they come to the cause of the aid of the cause of God, God will come to their aid. Not in the sense that God will assist them along the way. But in order to do that, we have to abandon certain desires within us, their whims. And they wanted to stay with their origins. They wanted to stay with their Imam, believing in him, loving him, following the sunnah that they know. And their hearts, in order to take this journey with the Imam, and during our age, to take this journey of being people of Iman, people of principle, people of morals and ethics, as taught to us by the Quran and the Sunnah, the hearts have to be emptied of all the sacrificial idols before it can be filled with the aqidah and the belief and the love and expressions of devotion to Allah and the hujjah. And at times, in our modern age, and this is something that we see again with the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, is they chose to be in a state perhaps of powerlessness, of momentary powerlessness, as opposed to having power. What do I mean by powerlessness? Meaning they chose a state of apparent, I use the word apparent, or exterior weakness, as opposed to strength. Obviously, the strength in numbers lay with the Umayyad army, and weakness, externally speaking, superficially speaking, could be found with the army of Imam al-Hussein. And the same thing goes with the followers of Sahib al-Zaman, with the limited number of early followers of the Imam, and even during these days of the occultation. Why? Because we, as mu'mineen, in the same way as, well, I don't want to say in the same way, but we would hope we see it in a similar way as the followers of Abu Abdullah, that we don't see ultimate power lying in any particular nation, whether it be with Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, whether it be with Yazid ibn Muawiyah, whether it be with Fulan ibn Fulan, or whether it be in a modern nation state today. We don't locate power in these places or in people of wealth, George Soros, Jeff Bezos, or whoever it is. And the people who understand this, who don't look to authenticate themselves, to find their authenticity and meaning in their life by validation from people in specific positions of power and positions of wealth, these people are the freest people in the world. They are the freest people in the world, and these were the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Salu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And for that reason, we are not foolish. The mu'min does not humiliate himself. The mu'min is wise. How does the mu'min spend their time? Let me read a hadith to you of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Man da'a ilallahi arba'in sabahan. This is the introduction to Dua al-Ahad, which we recite after Salat al-Fajr. The one who calls upon Allah for 40 mornings with this dua, bihad al-Ahad, with this pledge of allegiance to the Imam of the time, kana min ansar qa'imina alayhi salam. that he or she will be from among the helpers of the Savior, of the Qa'im, peace and blessings be upon him. In matat qablahu akhrajahu Allah ta'ala min qabrih. That if he dies or she dies, of course this applies to men and women, before the rising of the Qa'im, of the Savior, Allah will take him from his grave so that he can support the Qa'im. وَأَطَاعَهُ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ كَلِمَةٍ أَلِفْ حَسَنَةٍ. And Allah gives him or her for every word 1,000 good deeds. وَمَحَى عَنْهُ أَلِفْ سَيِّئَةٍ. And erases from him 1,000 or from her 1,000 bad deeds. Why? Because they have committed their heart to be on the path of the Imam, not anyone else's path. They don't find their legitimacy, their significance, their authenticity, and their importance in other sources. And then we say, Allahumma balligh Mawlana al-Imam al-Hadi al-Mahdi al-Qa'im bi amrillah. That, oh Allah, deliver, bring forth our master, the Mahdi, the Qa'im, بأمر with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salawatullahi alayhi wa ala abaihi at-tahirin, fi mashariq al-ardi wal magharibiha. In all the four corners of the earth, in the east and the west of the earth, wherever he is, deliver him. Allahumma inni, oh Allah, I ujaddidu, I renew for him في صبيحة هذا اليوم, in this morning of this day, I renew my pledge of allegiance to him. For whatever I live in my life, ما عشت به في أيامي أحدا وأقدا, that for whatever I live of my life, whatever I've lived, it is for him. Ahdan wa aqdan. It is a pledge of allegiance, as an aqd, as a contract tying me to him. Wa bay'atan lahu fi unuqi, and allegiance to him, to the Imam of our time. Ajalallahu ta'ala farajahu. Bay'atan lahu fi unuqi. That it's an allegiance on my neck, meaning that I carry within my heart. Wala uhulu, and I will not turn away from it. Wala azul, I will not leave it. I promise you, Allah. I promise you, Allahumma, I promise you. On this day, in this morning. These are the mu'mineen, my dear brothers and sisters. These are those who, when the Qa'im arrives, similar, we could see to the companions of Imam al-Hussein, a similar example. إذا قام قائمنا ودعا الله يده على رؤوس العباد. That when the Qa'im will rise, the hadith tells us, from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, I believe, if I'm not correct, it's a famous riwayah in Al-Kafi, that when the Imam will rise, Allah shall put the hand of the Imam on the heads of his servants, of his believers, of the ibad, of the slaves of God. فَجَمَعَ بِهَا أُقُولُهُم, and their intellects will be united. وَكَمَلَتْ بِهِ أَحْلَامَهُم, and their thoughts will be perfected, their dreams will be perfected, their thoughts will become one, they'll be perfected. Kamalat. How beautiful of a metaphor is this? So we need to prepare by being on the same wavelength with one another. This is how we can relate, or at least try. We can't relate, but try to relate to the Ashab of Imam al-Hussein and the struggle of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And at this moment, in this time, our power lies in supplications like dua, like the mornings. What do we do after Salat al-Fajr? How do we spend the time of Salat al-Fajr? Do we turn to our Imam? Do we renew our allegiance to him? That yes, at times today, we feel powerless. Everything, with all the anxieties around us, no doubt, with COVID, with, what's going on south of the border, what's going on around the world, the instabilities, not to mention the way morality and ethics and family values are changing every day in front of our eyes. But it's at times like this when we turn to the Imam of our time, through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we turn to Allah to renew our allegiance to His hujjat, to His proof over us, that it's in these moments of powerlessness that we find power, that we rise up. And it's in moments like this that we realize that we're not seeking worldly power. We're not seeking worldly recognition. As we read in Surah Al-Qasas, ayah 83, تِلْكَ دَارُ الْآخِرَةُ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That the abode of the hereafter, نَجْعَلُهَا, Allah says that we've made it for whom? We've made it for those that don't seek grand position in this world. لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا. That they don't seek exaltedness or mischief and corruption in the world. That I'm going to reach the top, there be this, be this, be this. No, they're sincere, they work hard in what they do. And if Allah chooses to give them some kind of position, then that's, that's tawfiq. But they don't seek it out. They don't seek it out. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And the end is with those people who are conscious of God. The end is with them. The aqibah lil-muttaqin. But today, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, we are governed by emotions. Right? The idea that moral choices, lifestyle choices are nothing more than what a human being or individual feels is right, is all indicative that we live in a society, in a post-virtue society, or also described as a postmodern society. And as we get older, and I'm elder to definitely to most of you that I'm speaking to, as far as the students go, at least the undergraduate, master's students, certainly, even most of the PhD students. As we get older, we realize how deceptive this world is. I've had an opportunity to see the poorest and the richest of this world, among the poorest and the richest. And my message to myself and to you is we need to have an insignificant view of ourselves. Many of us give ourselves an inflated sense of self. I'm not saying we don't have dignity. We have to have dignity. But we should not have an inflated sense of who we are. And when we don't have this inflated sense of who we are, of ourselves, we don't take ourselves too seriously, Allah will fill the void in our heart with His love. And this is perhaps one of the philosophies of fasting. It's a kind of self-denial. It teaches us and our children to resist consumerism and the hedonism of modern culture. Allah uses things like fasting as a kind of positive suffering or a positive kind of form of struggle to purify us, to live as close as we can according to His divine will. Meaning, if we can't control our hunger, how can we control our pride or our lust or our anger? Self-denial is not a punishment, my dear brothers and sisters. Self-denial is not a punishment. It is a reminder of how things are. And when we take this path, we tell Allah that, Allah, I'm doing it for you. And I know you will keep my feet firm. يُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ, because you have said in the Quran that it is Allah who keeps their feet firm, keeps them planted on the ground, keeps them strong. And then the Imam of our time truly, inshallah, becomes our companion. And as we have read in Dua Nudba many times, for those who read Dua Nudba, the Imam is looking for a group of people. Right? He's looking for people with whom he can mourn. Right? Utilu. Right? That I can extend with them. Bil-awil wal-buka, right? You know, with that sense of tears. That he's looking for people that he can join. Utila ma'ahu al-awil wal-buka, right? Utila ma'ahu al-awil wal-buka. We read this in Dua Nutbah of Sahib al-Zaman. Yet we live in a world where everyone just seems to be pursuing their own desires with minimal or no constraints, without a religiously binding narrative that people say, oh, I don't want anything that's binding. I don't want that. The governing narratives are seen to be passé, old school, imposing, backwards. Many, even in the guise of so-called education, in the guise of false religion, are out there demolishing deen, family, gender, whatever it means to be human being. And I'm not only the one to speak to this. We can read people like Rob Dreher, Hussein Nasser, Sherman Jackson, also known as Abdul Hakim Jackson, Hamza Yusuf, William Chittick, David Bentley Hart, Guy Eaton, Abdul Hakim Murad. These are some pretty profound thinkers. Late Murtada Mutahari, of course, Shahid al-Mutahari. But we have to call a spade for a spade, that certain ways of thinking and certain paradigms are not at all compatible with a serious traditional life, with a life that we say, come to the aid of God and God will come to your aid. Join the cause of God and God will assist you. Yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamukum. And he'll keep your feet firm. That certain paradigms and ways of thinking are not compatible with the spiritual life. And if it's not compatible, then we have to just say it's not compatible. But before that, we have to know what that spiritual knowledge is. And short lectures like this for 20 and 30 minutes is not going to necessarily fulfill that. It's just going to, whet our appetite a little bit. And then, and then most of us will probably just many of us might just move on. But at the end of the day, God will not be asked about what he's done. La yus'alu. La yus'alu. Amma yaf'alu. Wa hum yus'alun. He shall not be asked about what he does. They shall be asked. That's we read in Surah Al-Anbiya, ayah 23. So in answering the call of Imam al-Hussein, in answering the call of the Qa'im, of the Hujjah, this is essentially not to necessarily feel good about oneself, but to live a life of dignity, in servitude to the cause, to a cause and power that's beyond this world. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That answering the call of Imam al-Hussein, of Sahib al-Zaman, may Allah hasten his reappearance, is to live a life of humility and servitude to a cause that transcends this world. And ultimate happiness is not found at a particular moment in our life. But ultimate happiness will be determined by the sum of our life, by the totality of the life that we've lived, by the totality of the quality of life that we've lived on this earth. And when our days are organized around salah, our days and months are organized around the wafats and the wiladats, the death anniversaries and the birth anniversaries of our imams and the Prophet, of course, first and foremost. We find that our hearts are entrained and in sync with Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, with the hujjah of our time, that our hearts are constantly giving bay'ah again and again and again, allegiance to the Imam. That for us, deen is something that organizes our entire life. It's not just one piece of inventory among other pieces. It's a worldview. So things like hijab and marriage and family and, are situated within this paradigm. And for this, there will always be a group of people who are ghuraba, who will find themselves estranged amidst a sea of infidelity and disbelief and abandonment of deen. But there are those, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tansurullaha yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. There are those who come to the aid of Allah. They strive for Allah and God shall assist them. As he says, God shall assist you and he shall give you resolve and resilience and strength in your way. And this is, I want to end with a beautiful example about the Muslims at the Battle of Khandak, actually, where it was a very difficult battle. It was a very difficult struggle. And Rasulullah could have just simply, if he really wanted to, pray to the heavens, to Allah, and just have everything sorted out. But the Muslims struggled and struggled and struggled until that point where Rasulullah went up to an elevated place and he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma anzil alayna an-nasr. Oh Allah, give us your divine assistance. Then Allah sent a wind over the enemy forces, destroying their encampments. But we have to reach that point of struggle. And then the Qa'im arrives, the Mahdi arrives. May Allah hasten his reappearance. But this is the point, right? We have to realize that, we have to realize that we can't be looking for easy exits here, easy way out, because we're not going to find that easy way out, my dear brothers and sisters. We got to struggle. We have to work hard. We have to work hard. There is no other way around it. And we have to search for the truth. The truth has to mean something to us. We have to stand for truth, not stand for causes. We stand with the Imam because the Imam is kalimatul haqq, is the word of truth. That's why we stand with the Imam, because he's the hujjah of Allah. He's been appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Huwa kalimatul haqq. He's the word of haqq and truth. We don't stand with personalities. We don't stand with movements per se. We stand with haqq. And ask ourselves, if I'm not sure if this is haqq or batil in this particular political movement that I'm seeing, what do I do? I'm not saying to say, oh, I don't believe in it and run away. No, that's not what I'm saying. But just be careful in where you pledge your allegiance or how you pledge your allegiance. And ask yourself, is it ultimately to that word of truth, which is the Imam of our time? who, although we do not see him, he is guiding us every day with his light and his love. And only then, when we live this life of truth, for haqq, we find our soul is aligned with creation. Our life, our family, our community work, all somehow, we begin to see it through a specific light, through a specific perspective. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And as Allah says, لا يغيروا ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. That Allah does not change a situation of a people until they change themselves. What we can determine is what we change within our nafs, within this self of ours. And when enough people do this together, Allah will change the condition. But when people become occupied with things outside, we have a problem. But a time will come where I want you to think of this. I want you to think of this, my dear brothers and sisters. That a time will come, we read in traditions, that people will be occupied with things outside their power and negligent of what they have control of inside here. That they'll spend their life worrying about these huge political issues. I'm not saying not to worry about those things. For example, the Uyghurs in China. Today I spoke about this in my Friday message. Right? The amount of oppression being done to them. They are the most oppressed people on the planet. We have to write to our MPs. We have to speak up and demand some action on this issue. I mean, they're basically, it's a kind of ethnic cleansing or whatever they're doing. I mean, it's a huge concentration camps, probably on the scale somewhere similar, perhaps, to Nazi Germany, in terms of the gathering and the imprisonment of people, of keeping people against their will. But ultimately, this is like a huge issue. Yes, it should occupy us, but we should not be so occupied with political movements that we become negligent of what we do have control of in front of us today, which is whether I wake up for Salat al-Fajr, whether I control my anger, whether I try to develop a life that is connected to the Ahlul Bayt. That I have control of. And those are things that, inshallah, we should try our best to work on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, we are told in the books of history, I'll just end with this narration here. There's a lot that we don't know about the family of Aqil bin Abi Talib. That the children of Aqil, of course, from the descendants of Abu Talib, sacrificed a lot on the day of Ashura. And one of those young boys was the nephew of Muslim ibn Aqil. We're told in the books of history that after the Imam was killed, after his head was decapitated, after all those horrible things were done to him, and a boy ran out of the khayma, out of the tent. This boy was Muhammad bin Abi Sa'id bin Aqil bin Abi Talib. And this boy ran out, and he was holding on to a rod, and he had a shirt on. This is the little nephew of Imam Hussein. The riwayah says, huwa mad'ur, yaltafid yamina wa shimala. He was terrified though, and he was looking right and left. And Hamid bin Muslim tells us that, he says, it's as if I can remember in those days, the little kids used to have earrings in those days, that his earrings were swinging. He says he was 7 years old, Ibn Athiyab tells us. He glanced right and left. The boy was not sure what to do. And the horseman, Laqit bin Yasir al-Junni, from the Yazidi forces, galloped towards this boy. Look at the heartlessness, just the viciousness, the I don't know what to describe, just the disturbing nature of this, of how dark a heart can get. Hani bin Thabit al-Hadrami tells us that Laqit bin Yasir al-Juhni intentionally got off his horse, chased after the little boy, and cut him with his sword. A 7-year-old boy. What would a grown man have to do with a 7-year-old boy? And there's something else, my dear brothers and sisters. The riwayah says, وَأُمُّهُ وَاقِفَةً تَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِ. And his mother was standing watching him. Wa Husayna wa Abdullah. These are the days, Ayam al-Safar, leading up to Arba'een. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our aza, accept our feelings of sadness, and we turn to the Imam and we tell him, Ahsana laka al-a'za bi jaddik al-Husayn. Salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Wa akhiru da'wana walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you, Sheikh, for that beautiful speech. We're just going to do a short Q&A with you, if you don't mind, just a few minutes.
Sure, no problem.
All right. So I do have 2 questions in already. If you're ready, can I go ahead with the first one?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the first one is, when you mentioned we will be aligned with each of the believers in thoughts during the Qiyam, does this mean our intellect will be raised to a level that we can be in sync with the Imam, or that we will not require a raising, but will already have high intellect upon the Imam's arrival?
It means when the Imam arrives, the intellect will reach its peak. It'll reach it's the closest that it can come to absolute perfection. Mind it, there is no limit to the intellect here. So, but the intellect will reach such a peak with the Imam, right? Because the intellects it'll be like this combined super intellect kind of, that that's what will allow the supporters of the Imam to support him at their full capacity and their full potential.
Thank you. So the second one we have is, what are some ways we can establish synchrony in our communities living in the West, where Islamic identity is stripped down and framed as secondary?
It's how you live your life. I'll give you 5 pieces of advice, and I've given this advice to so many other people. I'll give it to your brothers as well. Look at the Quran every day. Every day, try to spend some time with the Quran. Every single day. Number 2, pray your salah on time. Every single day. All 5 prayers. Number 3, watch your eyes and your hijab for men and women in everything that you do, because this will protect your heart. Remember, the eyes are a gateway to the soul. If we don't protect that, the soul can't be protected. Number 4, do tawassul to the Imam of the time every single day. Every single day, turn to the Imam of the time. Recite Allahumma kulli waliyak al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. Pray for the protection of the Imam. Recite Dua Ahad for the Imam. Establish a connection with the Imam. Recite Ziyarat Al Yasin whenever you want to turn to the Imam. Right? Today is Friday as well, a special day. And remember the musibah of Imam and Hussein fi kulli yawmin. Every single day, the ulama tell us. Remember, in one way or another, when you're having a sip of water, just remember him, close your eyes, and think of his thirst. It will soften your heart every day. Don't worry about what other people are doing always. I mean, there is to worry, but for you right now, if I can get 10, 15, 20 of you, not I can get, if Allah can get it, we just are here to help you and to encourage you and to teach you. But if Allah can have even 20 of you to be committed like this to Sahib al-Zaman, wow, we're in a great, great place, inshallah. So try to follow this kind of guidance and you will see tawfiq, you know, and deen will be the center of your life, inshallah, in everything that you do.
Thank you, Sheikh. So I think that's all the questions that we have for today. As far as time is concerned, you are free to go. Thank you once again. We're honored to have you. Thank you for blessing us with your wisdom. And may we meet again.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I pray for all of your safeties. I pray for safety for all of you, rather. And inshallah, I hope when the situation improves, we can see each other in person as we normally do, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam. For our matam today, we will have Brother Ghalib reciting a Noha. Brother Ghalib, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ایزه سولت لا فتا الا علی در شأنتون ایزه سولت لا فتا الا علی در شأنتون میبرد شمر سر معجر فکیف تصبحون کودکانت را به واد غیر ذی سر از تو جای آل ما دور از وطن یا لیت قومی یعلمون انعم الله علينا برسول مدني أنعم الله علينا برسول مدني هو جدي وأبي وواصف الكون علي خيرة الله من الخلق أبي بعد جدي فأنا ابن الخيرتين فضة قد خلصت من ذهب فأنا الفضة وابن الذهبين أنا مظلوم حسين أنا مظلوم حسين أنا مظلوم حسين أنا مظلوم حسين عجبا با عجبا أمت كفار که یکسر چشم پوشیده ز حق نمک آل پیمبر عجبا با عجبا عجبا با عجبا امت کفار که یک سر چشم پوشیده ز حق نمک آل پیمبر همه در ریختن خون منون بی کس یابر شده آماده و بگرفته به کف نیزه و خنجر و ستجزون من الله إذا قام قياما أنا مظلوم حسين أنا مظلوم حسين أنا مظلوم حسين أنا مظلوم حسين چیست تقصیر من ای قوم که امروز جهانی شده آماده به قتلم همه با تیر و سنانی چیست تقصیر من ای قوم که امروز جهانی شده آماده بقتلم همه با تیر و سنانی، در شما نیست ز اسلام نه نامی و نشانی. انا عطشان وقد احرق نطقي ولساني، انا ظمآن وقد احرق قلبي وفؤادي. انا مظلوم حسين، انا مظلوم حسين، انا مظلوم حسين، انا مظلوم حسين. لما يا قوم تريدون ببغي وفساد، لما تسعون بقتلي بلجاج وعناد. ليس والله سوانا خلف بعد النبي، فرض الله على طاعتنا كل عباد. فلقد شرفنا الله على كل بري، ولقد طهرنا الله بطهر أبدي. شرف الظاهر والباطن فينا أزلي، جدنا أشرف من كل شريف وجواد. أنا مظلوم حسين، أنا مظلوم حسين، أنا مظلوم حسين، أنا مظلوم حسين. من له جد كجدي في الورى، من له جد كجدي في الورى، أو كشيخي فأنا ابن العلمين. فاطم الزهراء أمي وأبي، قاسم الكفر ببدر وحنين. عبد الله غلاما يافعا، عبد الله غلاما يافعا، وقريش يعبدون الوثنين، يعبدون اللات والعزى معا، يعبدون اللات والعزى معا. وعلي كان صلى قبلتين، فأبي شمس وأمي قمر، فأبي شمس وأمي قمر، فأنا الكوكب وابن القمرين. أنا مظلوم حسين، أنا مظلوم حسين، أنا مظلوم حسين، أنا مظلوم حسين. بخداوند تبارك وتعالى، بمنايات منزه ومبرى، بتوراة وإنجيل وزبور صحف جملة فرقان، عما وياسين إذا جاء وحاميم، بتكريم وبتعظيم. منو مادر جد پدر و عم و برادر، شما رحم نکردین به من راه ببستین، دلم را بشکستید. انا مظلوم حسین، انا مظلوم حسین، انا مظلوم حسین، انا مظلوم حسین. زر خنجر شه لب تشنه حسین گفت، تو ای شمر ستمکار، تو ای ملحد مکار، تو ای کافر غدار. اگر من نشناسی بگویم بشناسی، حسینم و ضیاء القمرینم، قتیل الودجینم، امام الحرمینم. انا الفضة وابن الذهبینم، منم شهپر جبریل، منم آیه تطهیر، منم نخله خوبان، منم زاده زهرا، منم عرش و منم فرش، منم کرسی و لوح و قلم و باعث ایجاد دو عالم. انا مظلوم حسین، انا مظلوم حسین، انا مظلوم حسین، انا مظلوم حسین. بار لاها به حق پهلوی مجروح بتول، این عزاداری ما جمله بفرمای قبول. بار لاها به حق پهلوی بشکسته زهرای بتول، این عزاداری ما جمله بفرمای قبول. قطع ناموس نما مدعی آل رسول، قطع ناموس نما مدعی دین رسول. این حسودان ده همه خلق فراوان آمد، بار لاها نشود لال به هنگام مماد، بار لاهان شبد لال به هنگام ممات هر زبانی که فرستد به محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد و عجل فرج.
Thank you, Brother Ghalib, for that beautiful recitation again. Thank you all again so much for joining us tonight. For those who participated and for those who simply attended, just know we would not be able to keep these events going if it weren't for you all. So we have an immense amount of gratitude towards each and every one of you. Again, a huge thank you to Brother Ghalib and Sheikh Vinay. Of course, today it was Sheikh Vinay, and inshallah for the next 2 nights, Sayyid Ali Imran will take over as speaker. That being said, we do kindly request that you join us for the next 2 lectures, as I assure you there will be a lot to learn. If you happen to have any questions after tonight's program or after the series in general, feel free to reach out to us on any of our socials, such as Facebook or Instagram, and you can find us at TMA UTSC. We also humbly request that you sign up for our regular newsletter. It's a great way to stay informed and updated about our upcoming events and upcoming Islamic occasions. I look forward to joining you all again in the next 2 nights, and of course throughout the year in our various events, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.